When Insomniac Games released Marvel's Spider-Man in 2018, it quickly sunk into gamers' hearts around the world. The game was praised for its dynamic web-swinging mechanics, engaging storyline, and the vibrant depiction of New York City. Fans and critics alike loved how it let players truly feel like Spider-Man, dealing with both the superhero battles and Peter Parker's personal life. Riding on the success of this game, Insomniac Games released a follow-up, Spider-Man Miles Morales, in November of 2020. This new game introduced Miles Morales as the main character who brought fresh new abilities and a new perspective to the Spider-Man story. Since Miles Morales also received great reviews and became a hit, it was no surprise that Insomniac would be making a third game. And for a while, this was the only screenshot that we saw. But finally, on October 20th, the game was released, and just like the first two games, it was great, taking everything from the first two games and making it better. And the opening is a great example of improving off of the first game. It is a fun, action-packed set piece that is a great opener. It reintroduces us to our titular characters, like Peter, who is trying to get a consistent job after the first game. Same with Miles, who is also trying to better his education. And as we see in the opening of the game, Peter has a job at Brooklyn Visions Academy, being Miles' teacher. But as we see, Spider-Man gets intertwined with Peter and Miles' personal life, as Sandman is busy causing trouble in Manhattan, forcing Peter and Miles out of the classroom. Everything about the intro is fun. The music, the action, everything about it. We get some fun new gameplay mechanics like the spider arms and the web wings, which we will discuss later in the video. And in total, this is a great opening sequence. And we also get introduced to some new characters, like Harry, who was not present in the first game due to a trip to Europe.
You lying? Yeah. I like you, man. You lie a lot.
Which we all know this was a lie and was just a big cover-up for a mysterious disease that presumably killed their mother. Harry's mother, I mean. Harry's introduction here works well. The flashback mission in the high school is a great opener for the character, and it really sets the great bonding that Peter and Harry have, further building their relationship for the emotional finale. Kraven the Hunter totally stands out as a villain with a super intense and kind of sad story. He's gearing up for what he calls his final hunt, knowing that his days are numbered, which makes everything feel way more dramatic. His quest adds a really epic and perfectly tragic touch to the storyline, making his ending feel just right. Although it does suck a bit that the game makes us watch him kill the Sinister Six to really show how tough Kraven is. But you've got to hand it to Insomniac, because they seriously nailed it with how they adapted him. He's not just another generic bad guy just used for the plot. He's a huge threat that you cannot take lightly, and his presence adds a whole new level of excitement to the game. And this quickly made him one of my favorite adaptations. Same with Venom, who is such a big deal because he's not just any villain again, he's Harry, which makes the whole fight with him and Peter super intense. With Peter knowing that Harry is actually his best friend adds so much to their relationship and makes every encounter really powerful. The voice acting by Tony Todd is also incredible.
This is where we became best friends, and now it's where we become brothers. You abandoned us while we were fighting for our lives.
He brings so much to the character, and honestly, I think he should be casted as Venom way more often. And most of the time, Harry's reasons for being mad and turning evil makes a lot of sense. He's upset with Peter for using the symbiote while he was sick and dying, which gives him a pretty strong reason to be ticked off. Plus, the symbiote itself is known for twisting the user's mind and bringing out the worst in people. But there's this one awkward scene where Norman Osborn is just going on and on about how great Peter is while Harry listens in some classic Disney Channel trope, and it feels like they just threw that in to add a little bit more drama. That really didn't work, and just felt like it was kind of rushed in last minute. Despite that, everything else about Venom in this game is awesome, especially the final boss fight. It's super emotional and really shows the deep connection between Harry and Peter. Although I kinda wish Harry did die at the end because it would have made the story even more dramatic and sad. But overall, Venom was definitely a highlight of this game. Which, speaking of the symbiote, seeing Peter Parker in the black suit is super intense and really different from the regular, cheerful Spider-Man that we're used to. I always think that the black suit version is the best version of Spider-Man because it shows a darker side of him that we don't usually see. When he puts on the suit, everything about him changes, and you can totally notice right away. Like the second that the suit gets on him, the way he talks to Kraven's hunters is just way more demanding and threatening.
Oh, this feels good. Get your boss needs better aim.
Just what Kraven has been searching for.
And I feel sorry for him.
Like before in the first game, Peter was all about jokes and keeping things light with the villains. But in the sequel with the black suit, he's way more intense and kind of scary at times.
No wonder your family left you. You're not strong enough. They're scared of you, and you know it.
And he's not just tough on villains like the Lizard, he's even harsh with his best friend Harry.
This suit is the only reason I'm still alive.
Yeah, it's pretty great, isn't it?
Why don't you pop some more pills and say what you're really feeling?
Hey, don't.
But there was this big moment in the game that could have added so much more to why the symbiote was making Peter angry. At Coney Island, when Kraven shows up looking for Tombstone, there's a scene where Peter almost can't save the people from the burning ride.
I'm sorry!
And if they had chosen to show Peter failing to save them, it would have made a lot more sense as why he's filled with anger and regret later on. Like, this would have been such a perfect story beat to add that emotional weight to the story and really differentiate it from other Spider-Man stories, showing Spider-Man failing. Still, the story does a great job of showing why Peter is so messed up with this suit. The death of Aunt May really has messed him up in the first game and really did a number on him, and you can feel that pain and anger driving him in this game. And it makes his transformation into the ruthless black suit Spider-Man even more believable. And no doubt one of the best parts of the game is the fight between Black Suit Peter and Miles. You've got Peter totally lost to the symbiote's evil influence, and then there's Miles, who's trying really hard to help him and save him. Peter in the black suit is definitely one of the best things about the game. I've already praised it for that. It adds so much depth to the story and really shakes up what you expect from Spider-Man, but this is just one of the best parts of the game. Seeing Miles having to save his mentor is such an interesting dynamic that I've never seen in a Spider-Man story before, and I loved how they explored it here. Using all the lore that they've built up from the past Spider-Man games for this climactic part of the game is so perfect, and it's no doubt one of the best parts of the game. Speaking of Miles, let's talk about his character arc with Martin Lee and how it was perfectly done and one of the best parts of the story. This arc shows one of the game's main themes, second chances and redeeming your enemies, which the first time we see Miles' aggression is when he and Peter are escorting Scorpion and Martin Lee from the raft. It's clear that Miles is still dealing with his dad's death from the first game, and his electrified fist shows the hatred he has towards Martin Lee still. And this hatred is so strong that it makes Miles let civilians almost die during a confrontation, showing that his emotions could mess up and get in the way of his role as a hero. And later, in Kraven's Arena, Miles gets to fight Martin Lee. And even though he does beat Martin, Miles decides to let him go, hinting at forgiveness and the theme of second chances. But the climax of this arc happens when Miles and Martin Lee are about to free Peter from the symbiote. After Martin realizes that he's going to have to sacrifice himself, Miles tells Martin that he can't carry this hate for him anymore, signaling his full acceptance and redemption and second chance for Martin.
I won't forgive you. It's just not in me. But I can't carry this hate for you anymore, man. So let's set things right. You and me.
Overall, the storyline is amazing and meaningful. It reflects the core Spider-Man theme of second chances, showing how even those who have wronged us really deserve a chance for redemption. Miles' growth throughout this arc not only makes his character better, but also reinforces the enduring spirit of Spider-Man. Finally, let's talk about the ending and post-credit scenes of this game. The ending of this game was both great and disappointing. I love the relationship between Peter and Harry in this fight. Everything about their relationship is great. The dramatic tension is definitely there. However, one thing that bothered me is that Harry is still alive. I know I've already discussed this, but he should have died to keep the theme that this is not a safe Spider-Man story, which is what the first game did with the death of Aunt May, which is definitely one of my favorite video game endings of all time. It was just so unexpected, and seeing Peter have to make this tough choice is really one of the best Spider-Man stories I've ever seen.
You're gonna be okay, ma'am. I've got the cure right here.
Take off your mask. I want to see my nephew.
You knew?
I've known for a while.
I never wanted you to worry.
I did. And I am so proud of you. And Ben would be too.
I don't know what to do.
Yes, you do.
and Harry dying would have been way better motivation for Norman Osborn doing the G serum and being the Green Goblin for the next game, setting him up to go crazy. And the ending with Peter Parker deciding to retire from Spider-Man feels a bit confusing. It feels like something that really should be in the third installment, not the second one that is still setting up a lot for the next game, with the post-credit scene even revealing that Cindy Moon exists in this universe. This ending really does not make that much sense and is still kind of up in the air. But Spider-Man 2 definitely has an amazing story. I loved Kraven, he's one of the best versions of the characters I've seen yet. Venom was awesome and scary, making the game super intense. The story with Miles and Martin Lee was perfect and showed what being a hero is all about. Also going along with the best part of the game, its theme of second chances, which was really well done here. The voice acting was also amazing, especially by Yuri Lowenthal as Peter and Tony Todd as Venom. But I still think we have to give the best story to the first game. Everything about it was just so different, and it was really just a different and better Spider-Man story.
It was perfect. Perfect. Everything, down to the last minute details.
But still, I cannot wait to see how the third game handles all these new storylines. In Spider-Man 2, the boss fights were greatly improved from the first game, where adversaries felt like more glorified enemies than true bosses. But this time around, they hit the mark greatly. Notably, bosses now feature actual health bars, adding depth and satisfaction to each encounter. With better movesets thanks to the new combat mechanics, battle feels way more dynamic and challenging, enhancing the overall experience. The standout boss fight, no doubt, was between Peter Parker and Miles Morales. Being able to actually fight in combination with the story and music just created an amazing immersive experience. And seeing Peter mirror the attacks that the players have used throughout the whole entire game was a great addition. It's a great thrilling encounter that showcases the game's strengths. But however, not all bosses are created equal. Wraith stands out as probably the weakest encounter, primarily due to its nature as a side mission. While the arena and story aspects are intriguing, the gameplay feels like a rehash of Kraven's fight, lacking originality. And Sandman's boss fight is fun, but pretty straightforward, serving as the tutorial boss, which is kind of what holds it back a bit. Still a great first encounter though, just like I talked about in the beginning of the video. The Lizard's encounter is also enjoyable, but also pretty threatening due to Peter's dialogue. I mean, this man was straight up demolishing Kurt and everything that he did.
No wonder your family left you!
And Martin Lee's battle is no doubt the biggest upgrade I've seen from the first game, both in terms of gameplay and story. The gameplay is way better, once again improved with the combat, but the story is great too, adding a way better storyline than the one where Norman Osborn made him who he is. Just a way better upgrade from the first game. The final fight with Harry is epic, with the school arena being one of the best stages across the game. The dynamic between Peter and Harry really adds depth to the encounter, although the attempt to involve Miles at the end feels forced. But despite the ending being one big cutscene, the boss fights in this game are incredible and far surpass the ones of the first game. In this game, the gadgets are pretty good, but I kinda miss the ones from the first game. The classic web shooters are once again solid and feel like a staple in Spider-Man games and media. The upshot is alright. I mean, it's good for stunning bosses that can go into the air, but it's not that amazing overall. The concussion blast is super helpful against symbiote enemies and saves you when you're facing big swarms, kind of crowd control. The ricochet web is awesome, and it's perfect for webbing bosses fast and controlling crowds in a pinch. And the web grabber, the final gadget, is another good one for crowd control and getting out of tough spots. But I mean, this time around the gadgets are good. They're really good for crowd control and setting up the best part of the gameplay, the abilities. Starting with Peter, his spider arms are pretty versatile. The Spider Barrage is excellent for dealing damage, and its upgrades make it even more powerful. The Spider Rush is another great standout, especially when you upgrade it to web up enemies efficiently. The Spider Whiplash is decent, I guess, but I'm not particularly fond of air abilities. This one's kind of similar to the Upshot, but just way better. The Spider Shock is fantastic for stunning enemies and is probably my favorite out of the Spider Arm abilities. But the Venom abilities are what you came for, and they delivered. The Venom Punch feels brutal and immensely satisfying to use. The Venom Strike is similar to the Spider Rush, also being able to web up enemies, and is just as great. The Venom Blast is a great ability for crowd control and clearing up some space, and is excellent partnered with the Web Grabber. The Venom Yank stands out for its power and visual impact, making it my top pick for effectiveness and style. The Anti-Venom abilities are also noteworthy, particularly the Anti-Venom Bomb, which offers substantial damage and area of effect impact. But the Tempest is the ultimate upgrade, functioning like a supercharged version of the Whiplash by launching and damaging numerous enemies simultaneously. But moving on to Miles, his abilities from his solo game are already pretty impressive, but the new ones add even more depth. After merging his Venom abilities with Martin Li's powers, he gains Chain Lightning, which is fantastic for dealing damage and crowd control once again. The Thunderburst is a fun, well-balanced ability, perfect for escaping tough situations and damaging enemies, with upgrades making it even better, being able to use it one after the other. Reverse Flux is another great option for crowd control, especially with, once again, the Web Grabber. Galvanize is a great ability for dealing tons of damage to enemies in quick succession. And the great part about it is that as you're punching the enemy, it keeps electrocuting other enemies. But in total, the abilities in this game are spectacular and are basically one of the best parts of the game. Another spectacular part of this game is the Traversal, which got a massive overhaul. The most obvious feature is the Weblings, and they are a great addition. If you run out of places to web or just see a wind tunnel, the Weblings come in handy. I've seen some people online say that they take away from the web swinging, but they actually work together perfectly because of how smooth the transition is between the two, with the power of the PS5 making the web swinging way faster. And it honestly kind of feels like a chore to go back to the past games. Also cool upgrades like the Loop-de-Loop help you gain more momentum after diving, making swinging even more fun. And one of the best features returning from the Miles Morales game is the traversal abilities, and now Peter has some too, thanks to the spider arms and tendrils. But the final awesome addition is the Slingshot launch, which is basically a way better version of the charge jump from the first game, giving you more momentum and working great with the web wings. And all these traversal abilities are much needed updates that make the game even more exciting and make the gameplay of this game spectacular. The first game's open world was okay, with a lot of the focus on collecting items like backpacks, which felt a bit tedious. To start, the Brooklyn Visions Academy missions were rather dull and uninspired, but despite these missions being uninteresting, the reward is a pretty cool suit and was definitely the highlight of this mission. The Cultural Museum missions were a bit more engaging, involving a mystery about who the bad guy was. And the twist of Darren being the culprit for this whole thing was predictable and just kind of bland. And these missions still followed a familiar formula of gangs with nameless thugs just doing random things. The EMF missions, akin to the research stations from the first game, seemed a little bit downgraded and less exciting. The bee and biking missions were especially tedious, failing to add much enjoyment to the gameplay. However, the FNSM request offered a refreshing change with heartfelt missions like Find Grandpa, which is such a sweet and somber experience, and just kind of a great change of pace for this action-packed game with a lot of crazy stunts. It was just a great change of pace that really just felt needed for this game. And Howard was also a great mission. I really didn't see the death coming, and it's not like it was a whole main character like Miles Morales dying, but it was pretty sad seeing all the stuff that we had to go through with his pigeons in the first game. The Hunter blinds were reminiscent of the Kingpin bases from the first game, but this time focused on Kraven's goons. While they lacked special mechanics, they were fun for combat enthusiasts, but the Hunter bases were a significant improvement from the first game, allowing for a full stealth completion and being able to integrate side missions like destroying toxic plants or military vehicles from the Hunters. The Spider-Bots mission, while mostly a big collectathon like the first games, had a cool ending linking to the Spider-Verse movie, even though the character that you see from the movie was cut. The Unidentified Target mission, although repetitive, had a great ending hinting at the Chameleon's appearance in the next game. And finally, the Flame missions were the best, with high quality set pieces and a thrilling storyline involving Yuri's transformation into Wraith and the revelation that Cletus Cassidy is in this world. Overall, while some of the side missions were repetitive and boring, the open world in Spider-Man 2 offered an enjoyable and great experience that really improved upon its predecessor in multiple ways. In conclusion, this game is spectacular and a great experience. The story was compelling and engaging, even if it had some kind of mid moments. The gameplay saw drastic improvements from the first game, making it one of the highlights with its refined mechanics and fluid combat. The open world was somewhat improved, providing a more enjoyable and immersive experience as players explored the city, and overall, Spider-Man 2 is a spectacular game and an excellent addition to the series.
I'm the hero here, not you.
You don't know what you took from me, but I can't carry this hate for you